What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Heck versus Hell, where the truth we tell. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this wonderful segment of truth. Wherever it is that you're listening to this on, please make sure to check out the www.realdoverosechannel.com for any updates, information, whatever it is to get involved deeper in the proximity of what it is that we are doing and become a part of it. Become truly a part of it. Like, you're already a part of it by listening, just listening to it, which is awesome. And that's phenomenal. But we know that there are those people that actually even told us very explicitly that they want to get deeper involved. So if you want to figure out how to do that, if you want to go find more information about what you can do, what parts you can play, or, starting your own situation, circumstance, whatever it may be, go check out the website. We have a lot of things going on right now and still so much more to unfold because things are ramping up, okay? Things are getting hot. Even though I am sitting out here in the cold in negative 15-degree weather up here by Minnesota, it is not cool. This is negative 13 degrees Fahrenheit, so I don't know where that's at on the Celsius unit. But anyways, it's a great intro and transition into the conversation because, as you could tell, we are speaking about ICE today. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. This is not a conversation that I wanted to have because, on one hand, there's just different angles. There's different angles to it, and actually there's even people, one of my aunts had actually even made a post about something saying about how they hate Latin people of Latino descent that does not speak about ICE. Now, that didn't trigger me at all. I'm like, well, if people do, people don't. I still speak about it in my personal situation, and especially now, because right now I'm actually at one of the center points of where all the action is going on, and that is Minnesota, the state of Minnesota. And that's why it is cold like Minnesota, as Lil Yachty said. But we don't listen to secular music anymore, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, it's really rampant up here right now because they don't have the culture like they do in California. In California, they were kicking these ICE officers out, and they were going a little hard. And that's actually one of the reasons that I didn't not want to take a side. I don't want to put it in that mannerism of how it should be looked at, but in what is right and what is wrong all the way in this situation. Now, there's this pastor that actually was the one that triggered me off into wanting to speak about this. And I'm telling you, because even like we've spoken about the Black Lives Matter situation that previously happened and how it was chaos. It was fighting fire with fire. It was not repaying evil with good, as we are called to do. And I understand we must be warriors for God, and there must be things that we stand upon. And even to the point where I spoke to my spouse to be, and I was speaking about how if I was in the days of the Black Panthers, or if I was in the days of slavery, I would be a Harriet Tubman, I would be a Nat Turner, I would be a Black Panther. Even now, if that opportunity presents itself, I know they have some kind of group that's supposed to be the Black Panthers. I haven't looked too much into them to see how legit they are or what's going on there. But if I was in those situations, absolutely, I would do everything and lead it the way I was supposed to be leading it, in a righteous way where violence may be the necessary force used in certain situations and circumstances. And even now, if I see 5 ICE agents or any type of wing of, even cops, SWAT, military, whatever it may be, that are kicking a guy's life to death, it it would be something that I would have to interfere with, even to the point if it got physical or not. Because it's just situational, it's just circumstantial. Now, I believe personally, they went a little too far when it came to the Los Angeles riots earlier this year, 2025. Oh, it's 2026 already. But earlier last year, whatever. In the 2025, where they were having all the riots in the streets, they were basically scaring ICE agents out of town. I really think they went a little too far. Just for the fact that they were causing unnecessary ruckus in certain aspects, in certain avenues. Now, I think the point of standing together as a community is really great. And this is where the conflict lies, because I understand also what it is that they are designated to do, and they are meant to target people that are illegally, quote unquote, here in America. And I understand it's a point of separating people, but the wrongness comes from it being a target to a certain demographic of people, especially the way it's playing out. So, on one hand, and it's not even the point of what they're trying to do that I see as right. The point of them being potentially right, quote unquote, is the fact that I see America going in such a downfall, so far gone from value, so far gone from anything that can be called good, that it may be better for people to get deported back to their own countries for the saving of their lives. Now, that's how I'm thinking. I'm thinking on a different type of spiritual level and seeing it through what potentially could be playing out through God's plan, God's will, and what already is set in motion through the evilness of and corruption of the world. And, even whenever it goes to, I believe there was one study, there was one man, I believe, that did certain research where it had to do with sexuality and related to the quote-unquote freedom of sexuality in a country or in a civilization and the downfall of it after. And America is almost to that point and threshold of the downfall that was a pattern that always occurred. And they never related it to Sodom and Gomorrah. It wasn't even a person that was studying on behalf of God, right? We would call it a biblical study. It wasn't anything related to that. It wasn't a Christian study. It wasn't any of that. It was a study and pattern that they found. And I want to say it was 50 years? 50 years? I can't remember. But regardless of fact, America was coming up to that threshold. Now, I want to play you this video really quick. Before I go too deeper, I'm going to play this video. I'm going to just, use the audio, put it in, and then we can go based on that. So this is Mark Driscoll. I love this man. I really love how he teaches. I love his message. I love his revelations that he brings into the public, but he is incorrect here. I have to honestly say he is incorrect here. So let me play that for you right now.
You don't need to be famous to be powerful. You don't need a perfect life to inspire. Sometimes the story that changes everything is the one you almost kept to yourself. Story to Blessings exists for that exact reason. This is a global storytelling experience created by Real Double Dose Channel, where real voices are shared with intention, integrity, and impact. You submit your story once. Audio if you want privacy, video if you want connection. No interviews, no pressure, just your truth. Curated and released through RDDC's broadcast and syndication network. Your story becomes part of something bigger, a movement, a message, a legacy. And yes, you're blessed in return. Participants receive a Travel with Blessings package, including a multi-night travel voucher, plus hotel and restaurant savings, over $3,000 in value. But more than that, you gain alignment with a platform that opens doors, future opportunities, expanded reach, invitation reserved for people who show up with intention. This isn't about being seen, it's about being heard. If you feel called to share, if you know your story carries healing, Story to Blessings is waiting. Your story, your blessing, your legacy. We'll see you on the flip side.
We open the borders, we let 10 plus million people in we don't know. Some of them are criminals. And so then law enforcement says, well, you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and you're hurting people. So we're going to find you and we're going to remove you. And then other people come along and say, you know who's evil? Law enforcement. You know what that is? Pure evil. The Bible says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil and call light darkness and darkness light. And that's what evil people do. We're seeing it right now. When people are harming citizens, and those who are protecting citizens are called evil, you know that a culture has lost its soul and its conscience. And unless it repents, it'll lose God's favor and blessing.
Okay, so as you heard, he says people are calling law enforcement bad, which is not the case. We're calling ICE bad, the organization bad. And it comes from a deeper stem. And this is where I don't understand how some people can look at things at such face value, right? He's saying, oh, we let all these people in. First off, why did we let them in the first place? Not to be, Democratic or Republican, but why did we let them in the first place? What was the point of not doing the proper screening in order to let people that are supposedly committing all these crimes in, right? Number two, it is not law enforcement that is bad. It is that specific organization that is clearly corrupt, untrained, and not properly regulated, even to the point where now, just today, I had read about how there was a leaked inside memo from the ICE immigration where the stand-in director had actually he gave free reign to people, to the agents, to be able to essentially kick down a door and enter it if they have a final order of removal for a non-citizen, right? So it's essentially like a warrant in a way, but not having the search warrant. And if you know a little bit about law, I'm not well acquainted myself, but I've gone through certain situations where I had to become acquainted with certain aspects. They cannot enter the property if they do not have a search warrant. I think there might be an exclusion of them actually seeing that you are there, but even then, they might not be able to. Regardless of fact, they can't do that, okay? They can't do that because obviously somebody like that, they're not going to answer the door if they know that they are illegal, right? So it's basically giving free reign to break and enter. It has become a militia. It has become an organized unit of Trump's personal little band where they are just working not even in vigilantism, but really on a racial, quote unquote racial. I don't like saying racial just because of the fact that we're all the human race, but on a racial demographic mannerism, right? Because let's be honest, since Trump has been in office, there has been so much more discrimination whenever it comes to the pigmentation of our flesh. Like, it has spiked tremendously and very, very openly. There's people right now that are constantly making these very discriminatory remarks based off of where a person is from or their skin pigmentation. They don't even have to be not from here, right? So it's such a stupid concept, and it once was a necessary organization because I understand it. I understand that it is something that needs to be in place. It has its role, right? It has its role in the overall system and government. Now, of course, we understand that dark principalities lie in those high places of government powers, and there is still use for them, though. There is still use for governments and systems because even Christ said, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, give to God what is God's. So it's not for you to submit fully and wholly into the government and make it the number one thing. And also like that, people are becoming it put them in a category of being more patriotic. So even this pastor that I really love, he's becoming more quote unquote patriotic than looking for the fact of humanity, looking for the fact of saving souls. What is the point of having these conversations when it deters from the path that we are meant to be on? It deters and takes away from the glory that God is meant to receive, and it puts you in that mindset, right? In the same way, if I go and I need to talk and get the message across to certain pharmaceutical street reps, I'll call them, I have to kind of go into that position. I have to go into that mindset to be able to properly deliver the message that I need to deliver to an extent. So it lowers your frequency. It lowers your vibrational frequency. Even the thoughts that you're having, you have to formulate your thoughts around what is lower than the vibration of the spirit. So that's really why I don't like having a lot of political conversations, even though some are definitely necessary, even though there needs to be discernment in them. It was wrong for Mr. Mark to say that we are exchanging evil for good and good for evil. And I don't think it's right how some of them are treating certain federal agents, right? I understand the point of not giving people service, not giving people business, but some of these people, they're deliberately going and pouring water where these agents are walking in order to make them slip and fall. And I've had probably like 6 falls up here. It is very painful. I'll tell you that right now. It is very painful if you fall the wrong way. I didn't finish that episode, so I need to go back and I need to finish that episode. That you're gonna listen to it next week, but it's really good. It's gonna be about one of my falls. It's gonna be about one of my physical falls, and I think it was a really amazing testimony that God allowed me to have. But tune in next week or tune into the next episode if you're already here after you're done with this one. Anyways, it's still the point of it's not trading it. Now, there are certain things that are being traded, good for evil and evil for good, in different aspects and different avenues, but this is not one of them because really they are an organization that put out, first off, number one, a bounty essentially on human lives in order to take them out of stolen land. Now, let's be honest, stolen land. Number two, it invokes discrimination. And number three, it allows for very unexperienced, power-hungry individuals to join a power of authority to where they have to have a certain type of responsibility and self-control, which honestly is not being shown by many of these people, even like the certain shooting that happened up here in Minneapolis not too long ago. And that was, a very tragic situation, but it shows how some of these people, they're just very trigger happy. and they're wanting to be in that position. That's been going on, right? There's always certain law enforcement officials that are power hungry, that don't have that self-control and self-restraint, and they get caught up doing heinous acts. But to allow that flood in, it's even worse than allowing immigrants that are supposedly causing all this harm into America when they're doing it into their authority system, right? So it becomes a kingdom against itself, literally. And as we know, a kingdom against itself cannot stand. So it's very wrong how they are going about the procedures, even to the point where they're abusing people in facilities, sexually, physically, whatever it is that they're doing in there. Now there's a homicide in El Paso, Texas, that happened where a man was over here just beaten to death, literally. Now, yes, they're going to say, oh, this guy was a murderer, and, maybe he was. But regardless of fact, we are not God, and that judgment does not befall upon us. If it was a manner of self-defense or self-defending another person, if he was in that action of about to commit murder, then it would be an understandable kill, should I put it. That was not the situation, because they had this man restrained, and then they beat him to death. And it's Rodney King happening all over again. And this is the severity of the situation. It's lynchings happening all over again. Because one thing people never really spoke about, we spoke about the lynchings that happened after slavery, and people of color were freed from bondage, and there were still lynchings going on, people being hung by trees. But they didn't really speak about the Roaring 20s and around that area where Mexican Americans were specifically targeted, where Latinos were specifically targeted. Nobody really talks about the targeting on Irish. It's all a discriminatory factor, and the reason I don't like speaking about it too much whenever it comes to what background you are is because that is a war that began through Satan, because nowhere in the Bible does it exclusively say some person of some color. Even all these people that go and they try to prove the fact that Jesus is black and the true Israelites are black, of course. But what does that have to do with our salvation? What does that have to do with us being sent into every nation to make disciples? What is the point there? So it becomes an issue of playing into a game that isn't meant to be played into. So on one hand, yes, you should definitely stand against it. But on the other hand, it should not be your main focal point. And there's some people that are. There's some people that were specifically meant and created for that purpose. But if you are making that your sole purpose and it is taken away from your true purpose, it should not be something that you spend all your time and energy and effort into, unless you were chosen for that specific purpose, right? And you will know if you are, because just as I am passionate about this conversation, my passion comes from good and evil. My passion comes from what is wrong. And I understand people get discriminated all the time. People get in certain situations for whatever manner. There's people that discriminate you for your size. There's always going to be a certain type of discrimination. There's even going to be discrimination from the rich and the poor. So it should not be a conversation for most of us. But we should stand for what is good. That is what we should stand for. Because even in the situation like Rodney King, even in the lynchings, even in slavery, that was not good. We're not fighting for equality. We're fighting for what is good and what is evil. And evil is very prominent in this world. And that is something that we must understand. So our purpose comes from what we are truly passionate about, what we can pinpoint and say, hey, this right here is what pisses me off for my purpose. I love each and every one of you. I hope you have a blessed one. I hope this message impacted you in some kind of way and gave you some sort of understanding. If you don't like my position of what I take, because honestly, I'll be honest, I actually wanted Trump to win because it was two of lesser evils. Whenever it was him against Kamala Harris, I'm gonna be honest with you, because it was either a man that goes and deports people or killing babies, killing people that cannot stand for themselves, right? And I know it's still it's still a complex, but the lesser of two evils. That is how I saw it. That is what I believed, and I still believe that. I still believe that this situation is better played out than what could have been, and it is being positioned in the purpose and the role for what is to come. Because very soon we will see the one that is the Antichrist, if he's not even already here. Because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know. I'm not sure who exactly is gonna be. We might know as soon as we see him. We might know as soon as we can deduce certain information and actions that they are doing. But I don't believe he is here yet. I believe it's very close. He might not have been public just yet, or whatever it is, but we are very close. We are very, very close to those days of revelation. And be on guard, because even the elect will be deceived. And we were elected for God's purpose and God's will. We were elected for the kingdom of heaven. Remember that, my beautiful family. I love you all. I hope you have a blessed one. And as always, we'll catch you on the flip side.